Okay, so I have a yoga student. Let me call her Shubha, though that's not really her real name. So once Shubha had come to me for a yoga class, extremely agitated about a fight she'd had with her mother-in-law. So we finished our yoga class together and she went back home. And shortly after, I got a message from her saying that I almost can't believe it. Normally, after a fight of this magnitude, my mother-in-law doesn't talk to me for days on end. But today, as soon as I reached home, she smiled at me and said, "How was your yoga class?" So this brings me to the crux of what I want to talk about today, shifting from living outside in to living inside out. So when I live outside in, I live with the mindset that my inner state, my happiness is totally controlled by the circumstances of my life. So all my life energies, all my life efforts are about changing circumstances to secure my happiness. Living inside out, on the other hand, is living with the belief that my state of being really secretes the circumstances around me. So all my life efforts are directed towards shifting something inside me rather than only grappling with external circumstances. So this shows a magnet with lines of force around it which are invisible. But if I were to put a sheet of cardboard over it, we've all done this in school, and sprinkle iron filings on top, the iron filings will make the lines of force visible. Now, this is a pretty accurate model for living inside out because the lines of force represent our state of being, our thoughts, our emotions, and the iron filings iron filings are the external circumstances which simply pattern our inner state of being. So when Shubha came to me, she was agitated. As you can see, the lines of force around her were agitated. The iron filing, her mother-in-law, was agitated. When she went back, her inner state had shifted. So the lines of force around her were different. And as you can see, her mother-in-law was different. So to really understand what I mean by inside-out living, maybe we need to understand the interface between what I call inside and what I call outside. So to really get this, let's look at the borders that separate nations in an atlas. How real are those borders? For example, if an earthquake starts in China, can the border separating China and India prevent that earthquake from invading India? Or can the border separating Tibet and India hold back the waters of Tibet's Sangpo River and stop it from flowing into India as the Brahmaputra? In my psychological earth too, there are nations, but there are largely only two nations in my psychological earth. One is the nation I call me, which is within the skin, and one is the nation I call not me, which is outside the skin. And quantum physicists very boldly challenge even this boundary, because quantum physics very simply tells us that we are, of course, made up of atoms. Atoms have nuclei inside them. If we break down the nuclei, there are protons and neutrons. And if you break down the protons and neutrons further, there are subatomic particles called bosons and fermions. What's magical about bosons and fermions is that they don't exist in the sense that they blink in and out of existence millions of times in 1 second. Furthermore, quantum physics tells us that bosons and fermions arise from a substratum which is unified, single, undifferentiated matter, which is called pure existence. So going by this, quantum physics tells us that all matter is one continuum. Given this, what is really inside and what is really outside? But I can almost hear you shout in your mind, hey, I don't see anything flowing into me, and I certainly see form separate from me. Of course you do. But consider this. You see the way you do because your retina is sensitive to the Vibgyor spectrum of white light. Now, if I were to tweak your DNA to make your retina sensitive to X-ray vision, you would see everyone as skeletons. Given this, how much can we really trust our senses to give us an accurate report of reality? Coming back to quantum physics, if we go by that model that all matter is a continuum, then there is no inside, there is no outside. Everything is one inextricable continuous flow. And if I simply change myself, the whole flow around me shifts the way it did in Shubha's case. Now, let's consider what is the nature of this flow. Is this flow random? Is it callous? Is it something that punishes us for our wrongdoings? Not at all. The very nature of this flow is a compassion which maybe we can't even comprehend with our limited understanding. And its very design is to make us more conscious at every moment. And if things go wrong, they do not go wrong to punish us. They go wrong as a chance given to us to become conscious in some pocket of our being where we are unconscious. So let's take a live example. Astha was a girl who used to study in a school in Mumbai. And she was so badly bullied in school by a boy that she left school and went to a boarding school in another city. The funny thing is, few months down the line, the boy who used to bully her, without knowing where Astha was, landed up at the same boarding school. What Astha had tried to do was, she had tried to shift her external circumstances without really addressing the fear, the victim mentality, which maybe could be part of her being. She had tried to push that iron filing out of alignment in a preferred direction without changing the lines of force. So inevitably, the iron filings get pulled back to the original position. Let's take a look at the biology of this. This is a neuron or a nerve cell. Neurons are present all over our body and they connect with each other to form circuits. For each particular emotional state we go through, there is a unique neuronal circuit form. Schematically, let's represent the neuronal circuit formed for fear that Astha experiences every time she thinks of the bully. Now, every time she gets consumed by this fear, impulses flow along this network, reinforcing this circuit. That means every time Astha gets overwhelmed by fear, fear comes back to her more often and with greater intensity. But if at that moment, Astha had the good sense to understand that her fear is more about the neuronal nets inside her, the blueprint of it, and less about the bully outside. And this remembrance could make her look at the fear more objectively. And in doing so, when we pay attention to a negative emotion without succumbing to it, the good news is that the neuronal nets connected to them start disintegrating. So every time we combat a negative emotion, not giving in to it, it comes back to us with a weakened intensity the next time. So if I'm a person who wants to live inside out, when I'm in a spot, I will not play the blame game. I will ask, what can I learn from this situation? What can I really change in myself in order to address the situation from the right space? These are the real questions to ask. And now over to those young spirits who've had the courage to ask these questions, a short video clipping of some of my ex-students.
I used to think that in order to be happy, I was helplessly dependent on the outer world. Grades, a social life, what I looked like, what people thought of me. But what did I think of myself? I was trapped in noise, in thoughts, in fear. Yoga is a path to silence, to a light inside. Many of you may be rolling your eyes at this, maybe because you think it sounds unrealistic. But I assure you that each one of us is capable of finding a light, a stillness that is always, always there for us. One needs to practice yoga in the big moments and the small ones. But each time I'm able to keep my cool amid chaos, or I don't buy into anger, even when I feel that my anger is justified. The feeling is ethereal.
The simple technique of attempting to clear your mind of thoughts goes really a long way in helping you study, calming your nerves, etc. And the poses really challenge you, and our teacher tells us that the way we deal with the stress in our poses is the way we deal with stress in life. And I truly believe, and I didn't believe before, that the asanas and the way I focus in class really help me outside the classroom too. I never feel more in touch with myself than when I'm in yoga class. I've learned to deal with my emotions better. When I'm angry, I now realize that the emotion is just an illusion, and it's probably because of me that I'm angry, and that it'll pass.
We were born into a world of conditioning, a world of boxes, of stereotypes, of hierarchy, expectation, and labels. These boxes make us see skin as soul. These boxes try to push something very powerful into a very weak mold. These boxes take us far away from ourselves, and yoga takes me home. Yoga is my anchor. It is my reminder that life is easier when I simplify. I'm not defined by the standards set by society. I'm not the poison that my own mind tries to feed me. I hold sunshine inside me, untouched by the outside, untouched by labels and stereotypes and definitions.
Thank you very much.